I think at this point in my career, I've, feel pretty confident about these kind of things. I don't feel confident about a lot, to be totally honest, but with those kind of things coming onto a show, I know that when the camera's rolling, something's going to happen. And I feel kind of relaxed, and we're going to find our way. Maybe it's not going to work, in the first second of the first day, but 2 weeks from now, we're going to find our legs, and there's going to be something for people to watch.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Scott Speedman is an actor. He sat down with me in cyberspace to talk about the work. Is there a typical first step that you take when you land a role to kind of begin to wrap your arms around the character?
No, I wouldn't say there's a typical first step, because I think it's always different. And for me, it often sort of where I'm at in my life dictates some of that stuff. I'm doing an arc on a TV show now that it's a suit I slip into pretty easily. It's sort of, how I came to have a career in the first place. And it's something I understand that character very well. So the work on that is minimal. But right before that, I was doing a movie in Greece, a David Cronenberg movie with some great people. And, it was a very challenging role. And, it was the first time in years that I've read the script. I sat down, read the script. They offered me the part, and I was like, are you sure you want me to do this? It was that kind of, maybe you want somebody else for this. It was the first time I was like, it was an exciting feeling. It was like, do I think can I actually pull this off? I wasn't totally sure. And, some of the, in the last 10 years, I've been doing roles that are more just closer to me. And this was something that, it was definitely scarier, and sort of the whole arc of the whole movie kind of relied on this character. So in a weird way, if I didn't pull it off, the movie doesn't work, Mm-hmm. So that kind of process is much different than, something else, doing a arc on a TV show that you know very well. So, with that, then, you read it, and then, you realize that you need help to get outside of yourself. And then I work with this movement coach that I really like, Jean-Louis Rodrigue, that he's amazing. And we rent a theater and do all sorts of very awkward things there, and sort of get outside of your head, get into the movement, get into animal stuff, get into all sorts of crazy stuff. And then somewhere along the way, it sort of viscerally all comes together, and you start understanding this character in a different kind of way.
Why is the movement important first? Like, is that some kind of a thing where when you're attached to the physicality of it, you can slip in easier?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think for me specifically, I don't know if this is the same for anybody else, but you can get comfortable as an actor. And I'm 46 now. I've been doing this a long time. The lens is here, the light's here, you get comfortable. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you get a role where you have to that's not this job. You know what I mean? You have to get outside of that. So that kind of work with that kind of acting teacher is to get out of your head, to get back into not knowing what's coming next, not getting in more of an artist mode type of thing. So it's getting out of the self-consciousness, getting out of the cool vanity thing that this town can really breed. And you sort of get sickened with that stuff, and getting out of all that. So it kind of shocks you out of that. Like all of a sudden you're trying to be a lion in a theater in West Hollywood, and, music's playing, you're dancing, all that crazy shit. Yeah. So, and then, that gets you into, okay, now I'm, up and cooking and ready to go to, work with Viggo Mortensen, who's a beast himself. Like, that guy doesn't play around. Like, it's not a joke working with Viggo. Doesn't suffer fools in the best way, and he wants it to be great, and you got to step up. So it's that kind of thing. But it's also on the other side of that. It's like identifying certain characteristics of the character and what you can use with the movement and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I guess that part of it is not wanting to just have this kind of discombobulated animal thing if it's not in relation to what you're doing, right?
Yeah. As you go, you start to think like, I know this sounds all crazy, but it really is a method to the madness. With the animal stuff, you start to identify an animal and its characteristics that really work for the character or not. And you sort of try one and throw that away. And then you find one that works. And then you spend weeks, or I did anyway, once or twice a week meeting with this guy and doing that work. And it's something that gets into your body in a weird way that's very effective for me because I'm a thinker and I'm self-conscious. It takes me a couple of days to get out of my head and get more relaxed. And, early in my career, that would really throw me, why I wasn't ready to go right away. Now I know it's going to happen. You know what I mean? And you sort of give yourself that freedom. Like, you're going to maybe suck the first day. So what? Okay. Like, let's go. Let's get out of that, get into the flow of the movie, and you'll find your way. And that helps me really get on the ground. So
then it must also be important not to have expectations about what you're going to find there in Greece, right? I mean, because you could do all this work in a strange theater in Santa Monica, whatever you said. And, and then, but then going out there and then like, because you must have been a little nervous about this, right? I mean, and you're really preparing. Tell me just, I know you can't talk about the movie probably, but just talk about like expectations and how that impacted when you actually were there and on that first day and stuff like that.
Well, something always happens, especially, a lot of actors you probably talk to are actors, but they also see things visually and expect things to be certain, are also directors in their own right and probably have or have ambitions to or not. But I definitely, what I've enjoyed about the movies I've done that have worked is, the visual style that you can read on the script and then it's, comes to life and you can really feel it. And, sort of where I would get in trouble in previous parts of my career is, you have these visions of what it's going to be and then your expectations are not met or it's completely different. And that kind of throws you off. And you always have to, I think now what I've gotten a bit better at, I mean, I'm not all the way there, is doing all the work we were just talking about, getting there, it's completely different and letting it completely change on that day. And with David Cronenberg, the coolest thing working with him and Lena Dunham, actually right before that, was David. It's crazy. I just was so surprised. He doesn't really have like a shot list or anything like that. He doesn't come. He wrote this script like 8 years ago. We rehearse it. He watches it. We do it. He watches it. Then he figures out where to do the camera. And he totally reinvents the scene on that day instead of a writer director who's so consumed with, I saw this in my head and this is what it's got to be on that day. Right. And so that gives you a lot of freedom to go along with that. Like, you may have done all that crazy work in Santa Monica, but I don't give a shit. Today's today and Vigo's taking it here or Kirsten Stewart's taking it there or whatever. And you're, off to the races that way and allowing yourself to like reinvent it that day and not be self-conscious about it.
It feels like this is such the right way to do it as a director, doesn't it? Like,
it's a hard place to go to.
Yes, and you have to be not afraid of like the unknown because like I guess the reason why these directors are really trying to be so strict is because time pressures and like and wanting to adhere to the vision and get things done, but it feels like something's not there's not like a true collaboration going on, right?
Yeah, I don't even need like a true collaboration. I'm just like interested in what's compelling that day, as opposed to sort of going with rote on what the script and the tone of that scene was in somebody's head, I mean, because directing is a tough job. I've never done it. I want to do it, but I'm terrified of it. I think it's a really, like what you were talking about before, about, saying something to an actor and having them spin out and losing control of the set and losing control of your movie. That's why a lot of things are very, it's a tense situation.
I went all the way back and I just put on the pilot of Felicity, man, because I wanted to just see. You had skills so much back then, just in this first episode, that I was shocked to see. You know what I mean? And and she did too. Like I was shocked. I was shocked at both of you. So what was that? At that point, did you already do a lot of this in school? Did you build skills up already, or do you feel like there was just a natural thing that you were in that you just kept cultivating all these years?
I think with a lot of times, when you're that young, and the role that kind of pops you, in a certain, lack of a better way to say it, is a role that tends to be close to where you are at that time. And they shoot it very well, and you're just interesting. Like at that age, if you're able to be somewhat present and in the right situation, I think the camera picks up that you're compelling in some way. It's sort of hard to define and articulate, but that's kind of what that is. I mean, that character was very close to who I was at that time in my life, sort of a lost kid, didn't understand how to be a good boyfriend, didn't understand what that meant to be a good boyfriend or not a good boyfriend. He was just a selfish guy trying to figure it out his own life. He got wrapped up with this girl that he had feelings for that he couldn't really deal with, That was me at 22, And then you got J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves shooting on film, and, those guys doing what they do very well, and picking up on that and shooting it really well. And I think that's why that show worked, I mean, they cast it really great, and that's chemistry has really worked.
But you had confidence, but you had this strange confidence, unless I'm just seeing something, unless I'm just making that up. I mean,
my friends just, if they were listening to that, they would laugh their heads off at me having come. I mean, I was, in that way, but if you knew me, it wasn't, I don't think I would describe myself as confident. At all, just sort of a young idiot at that time, which took a lot of years to get out of. But yeah, I think again, when you combine, if you have some level of ability in that world, you can kind of find your way.
You is a show that I have no idea why I love this show. Like I usually don't like stuff like this. I watched the first 2 seasons. I think maybe it was during the pandemic. Maybe it was last year where I caught up. I couldn't stop watching the show. I couldn't believe, I couldn't figure out why this character, this lead character, was so compelling to me when I hated him so much. You know what I mean? Like this.
Yeah.
And I kept trying to figure this out. Then this season though, went off the rails. Like it made me so mad. I wanted to throw my TV out the window. And then halfway through the season, I was just glued again.
Wait, can I ask something? What was it about?
It was
this season that made you want to throw it out the window?
Okay. Because in the past, the absurdity was still in check. Right? This, I felt like the absurdity went out the window in the middle of this season. But then I suddenly realized this is the point of this show. Will you just relax? Like, this is what's great about this. They're able to do this with skill. Like, I'm talking about all of you guys, you as actors and the creative people behind this, the writers and everything, and the filmmakers. Yeah. I mean, and so I kind of gave into it and really loved it. I mean, because I'm kind of a snob too. Like in the middle of the season, I was like, people are going to start to hate this show. And then at the end of it, I was like, people are going to love this more than ever.
Like I haven't, on purpose watched any, I know what the narrative is, and I know why it's kind of a compelling, like, how does this show exist in 2021? How is this a thing that we're all okay watching?
Exactly.
Yes. Why is this so popular? Why do, women in particular love this show and love that character? I purposely kind of like, I'm glad I'm not the lead of that show, that I don't have to answer those questions. Like, why is this so popular? Like, Penn Badgley has to answer these questions about his character and, girls saying this about his character.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not for me. That's a tough gig, and he does it amazingly. But yeah, I don't know why it's compelling, other than, I would read these scripts, and again, like I didn't know the show that well, and they were just like these kind of catchy, fun scripts. And also it's shot really well. Like I hadn't been on a show in a long time where I was like, what, the setup's taking an hour here, and I was like thrilled with that in a weird way, because it's like, a lot of television is just like boom, 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 where they're not doing that. So I was, and they had more time to do it. Netflix, they had good money and a lot of time. So, and they would really shoot it. I mean, look, it looks really good. And I don't mean that in a just materialistic way. I just think that's really important. I think it's really pleasing to watch on that level. The dialogue's so snappy. It's really funny. And he's a great lead. So, other than that and the social stuff, I don't really understand. But it's a really well done show.
Yeah, and it also has a wonderful sense of place too, like this town,
Mm-hmm.
which I think I looked it up and realized it doesn't exist, right?
Doesn't exist.
I mean, I
Yes,
really
yes,
thought
yes.
it did, and I thought I think I want to like
It
just
sounds like something should be, it sounds like something that, yeah.
I really thought it
You're
exists. I was like, I
yeah.
want to just pass through this town next time I'm in California, and then I'm looking it up on
Modulate
Google.
No, I did the same thing, and I was on the show, so don't worry about it.
But I heard you say that Penn is a good number one, and
Yes,
you meant
huge.
number one on the list.
Call
I mean,
sheet.
tell me what that
Yeah.
means as an actor coming
It
into a
means
show.
everything. Yeah, it means everything. It can really make or break a show, man. You can really, like, movies are one thing, right? You know, you're in Louisiana for 6 weeks on a hard movie, and you're number one, and the director aren't getting along or whatever, and the number one, you know, is this or that. And you're leaving in 6 weeks. On a TV show, it's 6 months. And their whole design is to get you back to the second season, third season, fourth season, you know? So yeah, it becomes a bit of a family. And the number one, I've been lucky enough to work with some great number ones. I mean, Kerry Russell was an incredible number one on Felicity, and that sort of dictates how that works. You know, J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves have a calm exterior, and all these things I took for granted. I didn't know anything better back then. But like, you know, I've seen the other side of it too, where that can really be a real challenge to the morale of a show, where the crew loses interest or worse. Things are just functional and toxic, and you just don't want to be around that. I mean, that's tough. But Penn, that's the first thing I noticed. I was like, okay, well, that's partly why this show works. It's everything else, he's really good in the role, but the guy just had a kid. He's there 24/7. Is all this dialogue, all this voiceover. It's like he's, you know, in every single scene, and he did not break. You know, I got a lot of energy. I got a lot of, you know, things get tense, things get passionate. I like that. I think that's good. He's extremely calm. And I think on television as a number one, that's what I mean by he's a great number one. Like that show could keep going for years because of that. And the other way, if you got a terrible number one, no matter how great it is, you know, that can really sink a show.
And what about like a number one on a show for 18 years that you just stepped into?
Yeah.
Ellen Pompeo from Grey's Anatomy.
No, she's another one that was great. She's been great. You cannot do that show without her being a great lead, and not just in front of the camera, like everything. Like, she still cares. Yeah. I'm shocked. I get notes, like voice notes at 7 p.m. on a Friday about the upcoming script. And I'm like, you know, take it easy. I'm watching, you know, football or whatever. Like, you know, it's just like, I just got
these notes from her? Are these notes from her?
No,
oh my God.
I mean,
wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's what
cool.
I mean in a great way. She's,
that's cool.
She still cares, and she wants to make it better, and she wants me to be having fun. And, you know, and Kerry was kind of the same way, like wanting everybody to be okay. You know what I mean? And it worked for everybody. And yeah, that's a hard thing to pull off for 4 years, let alone 18, you know?
But what is it like? What was it like sliding into that show? Like figuring it's just such a well-oiled machine. Is there some kind of new kid on the block kind of worry that you have when you get there? Not
really, because on that, again, that's kind of the thing I'm talking about, like slipping into a suit. I kind of know that world for whatever reason. You know, I knew I had good chemistry with her. I like working with her. I like the writing. It's the kind of the boyfriend guy that I for whatever reason, I know that role. Like I just been always able to kind of slip into that role, romantic lead kind of guy, you know. And my job is now is you know it is. How do you make this interesting? And I think the writers are trying to figure that out too. And where is that going to go with them? And in the context of the show, like how's that going to work? And that's my job now. But I wasn't really all that intimidated or nervous about joining that show, to be totally honest.
I never ever talked to somebody about this, I guess. Is there some kind of pressure about knowing that you have to really create chemistry with this person? Like, this is not just for a movie. This is like you're coming in and you have to create this, and people are at home. They're getting ready to slam you on social media if you don't. You know what I mean? And how does this mean that you have to work with this person opposite you in ways that you don't normally do with another actor? Or do you have to Do you have to have some kind of spark that happens there on the set, or what is it?
I think that's really hard to articulate, define what that is. But I think there's something about, chemistry, we always think of it as just baseline attractiveness. Are these two people attracted to each other? And that's it.
Right.
I don't think it's really that. I think you know what the underlying subtext, where you're going, where you're trying to go to. And I think, if you've got a really good actor and, if I can be present with that actor, something's going to happen that the camera picks up.
Yes.
I don't know what it is. You try not to control it. You just sort of like, okay, that's her energy. And again, like I'm a supporting actor. I'm there to make her life easier. I'm there to make Penn's life easier.
Right.
How do I fit into their narrative? And with her and with him, like Penn, I had chemistry with. We didn't have a lot of scenes, but I definitely gelled with him in that way. Like, it's not like this crazy thing. With her, I'm like, yeah, I know what they want. How do I get that with her? And, for whatever reason, I'm able to do that. I just think, you just have to kind of go with what they're giving you and meet them halfway.
It must also help that she just wanted you, right? It wasn't like something where you had to fight for this. Knowing that she wanted you, you can settle into this kind of relaxation of like, okay, this might work.
Yeah. We're friends. Like, I know her. We've hung out. We've got meals. Like, so, we laugh. So I know that's there. But yeah, I think at this point in my career, I've, feel pretty confident about these kind of things. I don't feel confident about a lot, to be totally honest. But with those kind of things coming onto a show, I know that when the camera's rolling, something's going to happen. And I feel kind of relaxed. And we're going to find our way. Maybe it's not going to work, in the first second of the first day, but 2 weeks from now, we're going to find our legs and there's going to be something for people to watch.
Is there anything that you have come to realize after all these years that you don't need to do anymore? Like in terms of this work that you were so sure you would never, ever not do, like when you were young?
I think this comes from an athlete's background. I grew up in an athletic household, very disciplined. Mom and dad were athletes. I was an athlete. I was training like long hours by the time I was 10 years old, and I kind of brought that sort of mentality to acting early on. And I would tend to way overwork things and prepare backstory, work with coaches, get super intellectual about these things to the point where you broke it down into nothing. And then you got there on the day you were exhausted, 17 voices in your head, and you're trying to please everybody. And you end up being boring. You're exhausted by the process of just being there. And so with something like You came along or this Lena Dunham movie I did, I read it. I go, your job is to go and have fun on that day. And you understand the character, you understand what it is. There's a spark you have in your idea and to meet that. As opposed to like the David Cronenberg thing was like, okay, no, I need to take a couple steps back and find my way into this intellectually and physically, and then bring it on that day. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I mean, it's weird. It's a weird thing. It's like knowing when to not work, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And just let it be. Yeah. My job is to do whatever I can to, on that day, be ready to let it all go. And sometimes that means a lot of work, and sometimes that means like no work.
As a way to talk a little bit about how you work best with a director, can you maybe, because you talked about, you mentioned Lena Dunham and you mentioned David Cronenberg. Can you talk about, and you don't have to talk any specifics about what you guys did, but just in terms of these two people and about what you need as an actor for your working experience with them, and just talk about those two experiences.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're both very different filmmakers, but I was with Lena for not that long of a time, but I had a somewhat similar experience with both of them in that they were both like out there, extroverted, dynamic characters, which are, very fun for me to play nowadays because, it's fun to go there. But that requires a level of, you don't know what's going to happen next. And then the director that's not going to be nervous if you do something odd, weird. And like, I think it's my television head. getting sort of brought down back to a shootable level a lot of times in television career, that you have this in your back of your head. Oh, they're going to cut this. This is, a waste of time. Don't bother. Just do it normally or whatever. But both of them, I felt pretty at ease to take bigger swings. And each time I did, like, you do little tests the first couple of days to see what you can get away with. And then when nobody says anything, it's strange, but that's like a great thing that they didn't stop you from doing that weird thing, that I didn't know I was going to do it, and they didn't. I didn't rehearse it. I just did it, and they didn't say stop. They said yes, whether verbally or just by not saying anything. So that kind of stuff is what I'm always looking for. And look, from my point of view, I think that takes a long. Like, as a director, a lot of them are control freaks. Like, a lot of the best guys aren't great with actors, man. You know what I mean? Like Stanley Kubrick or whoever, I'm sure they weren't great. Like, you look at the Shelley Duvall stuff or whatever, like they're really intellectual guys that aren't always, the best filmmakers aren't always like totally actor friendly. We can name many names that both of us know about that are these incredible directors that we adhere, love, and idolize. Maybe not the best with actors in that way. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you don't always have to be fucking great with actors. You know what I mean? I would love to, like, anytime I work with a director, if David Cronenberg had been not good with me, I'd do whatever he said because it's David Cronenberg, and you're making a David Cronenberg movie. You know what I mean? The dangerous ones are the ones that think they know a lot about acting. That's the guys that are, or the people that are sort of scary or took a class and just got out of that and then want to take, I'm serious, and then sort of do what they thought, that can be a little scary.
That's interesting.
I shut down with that.
That's interesting. It's almost like it would be better to have somebody who's scared of actors than somebody
100% that went halfway.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Or did a class and then are teaching you like, okay, well, where did you just come from in this scene?
Yeah.
You're like, I did that. You just say action.
That reminds me of, I was talking to somebody and somebody said, it's actually, I was saying that about all my worries about directing actors. And then I was saying, I think that makes me, better than a lot of directors who don't have those worries, and we agreed with that. But then later on, we were saying, actually, it's not actually true. Sometimes the asshole who doesn't even know that he can mess up actors can actually have this energy that fuels the actor and makes them do it, even though they didn't even know that they didn't care about them. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes if you're precious like I am, it's actually something is actually, it can actually be problematic.
This is the crazy thing about it. You're 100% right. It's about creating environment. But also, again, just like these great it's all precious and detailed, though. Like, that's the weird thing that I don't really understand. I mean, the greats, from Paul Thomas Anderson, Stanley Kubrick, all these guys, incredibly detail oriented. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's all, and I don't know. I just watched Goodfellas again, and I was just like blown away just by how enjoyable it was to watch, but all the detail, like, that's not accidental. That's not just creating a good environment. That's like having a pretty intense plan going in. I think that's what I saw watching it. It came out in 1991 or something, and saw it then. But watching it again now is like at this place like that. It just blew my mind, on that level.
What's shocking to me, just going on what you're saying, is that I graduated film school in 96, right? And I actually think it's harder now, when I think about it, to make a good movie than when I thought about what it took to make a good movie back then. Maybe I was just delusional back then, and like a young person would be. Yeah. But I actually think it's really hard. It's hard to make a movie, period. I commend anyone that can make a movie. Yeah, I don't just mean about whatever now means. I just mean like there's something about, like you just said Goodfellas, and I started, all the images of Goodfellas started going in my head. I was like, oh man, my God, that's hard. It's so hard.
Oh yeah. Can you imagine it? Yeah. I mean, 96, 95, like I often look at 95 and like, Heat was 95,
Yes,
like
yes.
all these amazing movies. Seven was 95. Like it was like, I think the 90s get overlooked in terms of movies, and the indie scene too, in terms of making
Yes.
movies that was really celebrated for whatever reason, whether it was DVD sales or whatever, however it was making money. There was a lot of opportunity to do tiny furnitures
Yes.
in the 90s.
Yes.
That a lot of people like, we don't have that. It doesn't seem, I know,
Yes.
I don't want to bemoan the end of cinema and all that kind of stuff. That's pretty en vogue to talk about these days. I just don't believe them. But I mean, on that level of $1 million movie, whatever, where people would get their starts, that seems to be a little lost right now that I would love to find again. But I think a lot of those people are getting into television much earlier, That's
right. That's right.
And I don't know if that's the greatest director tool in the world, starting in television,
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah.
And it makes, but when I see something like Bestsellers, which I loved,
cool.
that you were in with Plaza and Michael Caine, like you were saying, maybe like 20 years ago, that kind of movie would have really had a better run.
2 years ago.
Maybe
3 years ago. Yeah.
What the hell?
Nowadays,
does this annoy you when something is that fun and is that like, clearly if people see that, they'll love it. Like as an actor, do you just, when you put work into something like that and in this current distribution climate, does this just annoy you, or what is it? Is it just you move on?
It doesn't annoy me because, you don't get too high or low on anything anymore. I put gotten really excited about movies and just didn't happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you just don't know. I mean, that's kind of but it's actually kind of a fun thing. You do these things and then you just kind of like let it go, and you stuff comes out, and like right now, I mean, a couple of things that people are talking about, and I haven't had that for a while, and that's like the weird roller coaster of the job.
Yeah.
But like that, like Bestsellers, sure. I think even pre-pandemic, that gets somewhat more of a life.
Yeah.
I think the pandemic really, and I'm the millionth person to talk about it, but I think it really shifted things away from those somewhat middling adult dramas that aren't easy to find a home anymore. Like, I don't know what that would have been, but I mean, yeah, it's just like, if Netflix isn't making that movie, then I don't really know how that exists right this second. That might shift again. Look, it's all like, everything is just, one movie like that's going to come out and make a lot of money in the movie theater, and then they're going to make more of those movies. I don't think it's that dire of a situation.
You're about to be a dad any day now, maybe any minute now. And so I'm not a dad, but you hear people saying like, your life changes, your life is going to change. It's forever.
Yeah.
And so your life is going to change. And do you have this optimism about what this will mean for your actual art as being a dad and having that change? Or is it all about like what Coppola used to talk about, which is he used to say, having children and being married fuels the art? And I was just wondering if you think about anything like this, or about the actual DNA of your artistry changing.
I mean, it's funny you bring that up, because it reminds me of like my 20s, especially in my 30s, like anything like shitty that would happen, like life-changingly bad. It was scary how quickly I was like, well, at least I can use this for a movie.
Right.
Oh, he died? Right. Oh, all right. Well, I have something to cry about on the screen. But for this, I really haven't thought about it in those terms.
Yeah.
I'm 46 now. I've been doing this a long time. It is a very particular job where you are the product in a lot of ways, and it does lead you to be self-absorbed. Part of your job is self-absorption and thinking about this and thinking about that, and how does this work? All that stuff. And this town breeds a certain vanity, and that can be toxic and crazy. And I'm excited to get off. I've been with this beast for a while. I'm excited mostly just to get off of that and see what this, like you say, everybody says, well, your life's about to change. And yeah, I'm curious and excited to see what that is. I haven't really related it to, how's it going to work for my movies? Not just yet, but I'm sure it will in a certain kind of way. Obviously, I think again, like, my buddies that have done it and are actors and good ones, they talk a bit about that, maybe not in the way you said it, but a bit about that, about deepening things and all that kind of stuff, which is good.
Deepening is never bad, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Scott Speedman, thank you so much.
Yeah, that was fun. My first podcast, by the way. I've never done one.
Yes. It's all downhill from here. Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.